All right, and away we go. Boston has officially entered the chat. Travis Thomas here inside the PNC Bank Studios with my man, George Malecki. And George, you know, it's interesting. Coming in today, I was thinking about this. I was like, there's no other person I want to do this show with right now, with the temperature in our country, than you, my friend. Because, look, no matter what side you're on all this stuff, right? One thing's for certain, sports in general has brought us together. And right now, with the way the country feels, we need as much unity as possible. So it's good to be here with you, bro.
Good to be here with you too, man. I couldn't agree more. It's a good escape, we get. Talking sports, we're lucky we come into a place. I go back to my local news days. Don't miss that at all. Especially, every year election coverage, but every 4 years.
That's a good point.
Sports is a good escape, man. I'm excited to get into talking.
That's another thing, too. Both of us come from similar backgrounds in terms of being in that news world.
Yeah.
And that is true. Not only do we get to do this together, but we get to provide sort of the relief and the escape for people to just go talk sports and chill out.
The ultimate reminder I have is, like, especially during COVID, everyone, there was no sports going on. You start doing news coverage, and like, you're pretty good at the news thing. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Might be a better path, get me like national quicker. Like, yeah, let me start doing news reporting. First town hall they sent me to, I'm like, I'm good. Going back to sports.
Really?
Yeah, I don't want that, bro.
It scared you straight. That's all you needed to see.
I loved every second of covering local high school sports in Missouri and D2 and JUCO sports in Missouri and Kansas.
Yeah.
Get me to one town hall, get me out of there. That is not the grind for me, bro.
Well, listen, if you enjoy sports like we do, you want to be unified with us, hit us up on the hotline, 617-790-0928. Boston has entered the chat hotline. Leave us your messages. We play it all the time. People call George an idiot. It's fine. We still play the message.
It was really, really stupid. It wasn't an idiot.
Oh, it was an idiot?
Two realies and a stupid.
Not that you remember.
Not that I.
You're not keeping score.
No.
Okay. Well, clearly he is. Also, email us, thechat@nesson.com. We get to those as well. Okay, so look, voting's over. Ballots are closed, but not here at Nesson. We have our sports elections. So let me ask you this. Give me your top 3 biggest snubs in sports history. Ballots are open here. We're voting. Give me your top 3. Start with number 3. We'll build it up to number 1.
My number 3 is Derrick Henry in the 2020 NFL MVP race.
I remember.
He ran for over 2,000 yards on 378 carries. He had the rushing crown the season before, just over 300 carries and 1,500 yards.
Yeah.
So he was the 8th ever 2,000-yard rusher in the history of the NFL. Just the 4th time it's happened since 2003. And he wasn't even top 3 in vote getting for MVP.
Sheesh.
Aaron Rodgers won it.
Yeah.
Josh Allen was 2nd. Patrick Mahomes was 3rd. Derrick Henry won AP Offensive Player of the Year.
Oh.
He didn't even get on the final ballot for MVP. And again, it's only happened 8 times in the history of the NFL. By the way, that was an 11-win Titans team.
I remember that.
That offense was one of the best in the league, 4th in points, 2nd in yards. It was Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown.
Ryan Tannehill when he was still good.
And Derrick Henry got to 2,000 yards by running for 250 on the Texans' final game of the season. Titans won that game in a shootout. I think it was 41-38.
Yeah.
He had his imprints all over the damn game of how good he was. He was, and still is, one of the most dominant players in the NFL. To not even be top 3 in voting, let alone he should have gotten the MVP because, by the way, last time we saw a 2,000-yard rusher, Adrian Peterson, he got it himself.
He did.
But Derrick Henry, no.
Do you think that was I won't even say the beginning of the end. Do you think that was the ushering in of it is a quarterback league point blank period? Because that, to your point, he should have got the MVP. I completely agree. And you bringing up Adrian Peterson makes me think of this, George. Whereas when Peterson got it, the league was still sort of transitioning from the era of the running back to, okay, now it's purely a quarterback league. But with this, Derrick Henry, I mean, it clearly proved, at least in my mind, that it's a quarterback's league now. That's it.
Yeah, and like Mahomes was phenomenal. Josh Allen too. I mean, I covered that Aaron Rodgers MVP season.
Oh, that's right.
That was my first time covering the Packers. And he was absolutely lights out.
Wow.
And all those guys had a huge impact on their team. That Ravens team is not winning 11 games without Derrick Henry. They're not in the wild card picture without Derrick Henry. They're not a playoff team. And he had one of 8 ever seasons by a running back in NFL history. That is so, and the team was winning games and got to the playoffs.
Take you behind the curtain here. For someone who loves to be right as much as George does, he covered the Aaron Rodgers MVP season, and he's telling you Derrick Henry should have won it. That says everything to me.
Yeah.
That says everything.
Just you look at the numbers he put up. He's one of the greatest players of all time. Didn't get MVP. It's when you look at it, you didn't even make the top 3. Awful by the voters.
All right, you know me. My brain immediately goes to fighting. Okay. Boxing and MMA both. I have robberies all over the place. So here are my snubs. Number 3, I'll go Triple G against Canelo. The first fight they had, 2017, it ended in a draw. But Triple G, I know you're a fan of his as well.
Love
Triple G
Gennady.
won that fight.
Yeah.
He won that fight. He was robbed in that fight. They gave it a draw because Canelo did what most boxers know to do. At the end of a fight that you're losing, if you can't knock the guy out, you got to steal those, they call them championship rounds.
Yeah.
Last rounds of the fight, round 10, round 11, round 12.
Open it up.
You got to steal those rounds because if you do, you create enough doubt in the judge's mind and say, well, maybe he did enough at the end, and you get a draw.
Yeah.
In my case, if you're asking me, it was robbery. There was some corruption. Something was going on, okay? Because I watched the fight, and I am telling you, Triple G beat his ass. Close fight, but it was a definitive Triple G win in my mind. That fight, George, is a draw. They fight 2 more times in their trilogy.
Yeah.
Now, Canelo won the second one, close fight, could have went either way. Canelo got it, didn't have a problem.
Yeah.
Third fight, it was clear Canelo was better. But just think about if Triple G correctly wins that fight, the first one.
They split.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
And who knows what that means for Triple G's legacy, because now when you look at it, you're like, oh, he was great, but he couldn't beat Canelo. It's almost like the great quarterback who never wins a Super Bowl. It's like, oh, they were great, but they didn't get the ring.
And in 2017, where was Triple G at in his career? Was it like right before the... Oh, okay.
Peak.
Yeah.
Because for years, everyone was ducking this guy because he was knocking out
Machine.
whoever. Yes. And people were saying Canelo's ducking him.
He was the
finally
best in
took
the game.
fight. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was like the lead up to that fight. Actually, the draw, if you think about it, George, really took away from the hype around that fight.
What... The age of Canelo, I know there was a big age gap too, but that's how
younger.
good Gennady, that's how good Triple G was.
Yeah. Well, that's why it meant more.
Oh, yeah, Triple G was 35.
That's right.
And Canelo was 27.
Yep.
And he was ducking them for all those years.
Yep.
And those are 2 of the top boxers. Like, that's the fight you want.
Well,
boxers, not punchers. Boxers.
And boxing is so much about legacy.
Yeah.
And so now, if you're Triple G, you're like, damn, I got robbed in that first fight.
Yeah.
You go back, you fight the guy 2 more times, but you never beat him.
Yep.
When you should have had 1, and who knows if that changes the trilogy.
Changes the whole narrative on him,
Exactly.
possibly. Yeah.
What's your second one?
Second one, I went Michael Jordan, man.
No.
So the 96-97 season for him, it's sandwiched between 2 MVPs. Of course, you go a season before. Bulls win 72 games. He's averaging 36-4. So he follows that up with, they only went 69-13. Only. He averaged 29-6-4. His shooting splits were absurd, 49, 37, and 83.
Woo.
He was doing this while being top 5 in Defensive Player of the Year voting.
Jeez.
Carrying that Bulls team to 69 wins once again, loses to Karl Malone, who was good. He averaged a double-double, but more wins. And you know what it was? It was voter fatigue. Because the following season, Jordan got an MVP. But to follow up 72 wins with 69, to go from 36-4 to 29-6-4, there's the drop-off. The MJ standard's unreal. It's what we've seen with LeBron James. It's what we've seen with Patrick Mahomes. It's what we've seen with select athletes like Tom Brady not getting an MVP, I think, in 2010, because the standard they have is so damn high.
Yeah.
MJ should have gotten the MVP in that one. He finished, in the top 3. And the best part, though, is what does he do? He gets the ring over Malone in the NBA Finals.
Yeah.
We get the flu game that year.
Yep.
He puts his full-on, just greatness on display. And there is a theory. So Jackie McMullen, back in 97, put out an article basically of like, Karl Malone should get MVP for this reason.
Sure.
And that swayed the voting. And she has said in the past, her article and Malone getting MVP, which MJ was really respectful about with talking about it after, but that made Malone basically lunch meat for MJ in the finals.
Jeez.
But it was narrative driven. It was voter fatigue.
Yeah.
MJ was still at his peak. Should have three-peated an MVP. He's got him 3 years in a row. And he still got the NBA championship, but he should have gotten MVP.
Yeah, he got the ring. That's all he cares about anyway. But yeah, any as we learned from The Last Dance, any little snub ever.
Well, he'd make it up too.
Right.
That's
Anything.
the best one. He didn't say hi to me at dinner. He's like, I said hi. I said hi to him.
Hi, Mike. Hi.
Yeah. He ignored me at dinner. I said, reading about this too, it makes me want to go back and watch The Last Dance. I've done it. So good. All time, I would say though, finals jersey matchup.
Yeah.
Bulls in their blacks. And the Jazz in their mountain jerseys.
You like those mountain jerseys?
Oh,
I hated those jerseys. So here's my problem.
The purple.
Now that I'm older and there's some growth there, I wonder if I could go back and look at those jerseys and appreciate them the way you do. Because the reason, I could tell you now why I hated them then, it's because I hated John Stockton. I hated everything about him. I hated his face. I hated everything. I hate John Stockton to this day. Oh, those are fresh. You're right. All right, he's pulling them up now. Those are nice. Okay, listen, we have some growth here. Hey, you know what? Back in the day, I hated these Jazz unis, the throwbacks. Now I like them. The 90s Jazz unis, I'm in. I call them the Greg Oster tags. I like those.
Just look at those white mountain jerseys with the red Bulls.
They are nice.
Yeah.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that. It's nothing beats a classic. The Bulls, too, man. That red and that black, so iconic. By the way, my number 2, I'm going back to fighting. John Jones, decision over Dominic Reyes, UFC 247. John Jones is a GOAT, no doubt. I've said that time and time again. I'm a huge John Jones fan. But he had 2 fights. Dominic Reyes, the one I'm talking about, he had another one before that, Alexander Gustafsson, who's another guy who pushed John Jones to the brink. George, he could have lost either one of these fights.
Yeah.
I went with the Reyes because it's more recent. 2020, I believe this fight was. But John Jones dominates people, and so when you see him go into deep waters, when you see him bloodied, when you see him beaten up, it's like, oh my gosh, you automatically feel like he's going to lose this fight.
Yeah.
And like all the great champions, he digs deep late in the fight. I just talked about this with Canelo. Like, he digs deep late. He makes it to where the judges have a decision to make, quite literally, and they went his way. But I'm telling you, and watching all these fights, 2 in particular, Reyes and Gustafsson, he could have lost either one. And even though I'm a John Jones fan, I walked away from it feeling like Reyes got snubbed. He got robbed.
That's interesting. And why? So, as you said with Canelo, same thing on the other side. If one opponent empties a tank, why doesn't the guy leading? Because you don't want to open yourself up to get knocked out?
Well, yeah, and there's also a saying in combat sports, whether it's boxing or UFC, there's a saying that if you're going to be the champion, you have to definitively beat the champion. Meaning, if it's a tight, if you're the champ and we're fighting and it's close, they're going to give you the nod because you are the champ. It's like giving you the benefit of the doubt.
Because you literally didn't beat me.
That's right.
Yeah. You didn't knock
I have
me
to
out.
go in and either knock you out or if it does go the distance, George, it's got to be clear that I dominated you. And then it's like, okay, there's a new champ.
So Triple G, and in the case of Reyes, they're trusting the judges, and the judges failed them.
Bingo, which is why exactly when we went here of snubs, I thought
I think it's a great way to go.
You got to go to fighting because it's a long list. I just went recent examples.
Yeah.
But bro, I mean, you could go back to the history of time of this stuff.
I love fighting. It just, as that sport tries to get back into the mainstream and get a fan base back, outside of like Jake Paul and gimmick fights against like geriatrics.
Yeah.
That's like the issue, is that you can watch a great fight and then the judges can absolutely ruin it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all sports have this issue where the officiating and the human element of mistakes is there.
Yeah.
It's flawed from the human element. That's bad though in fighting.
Bro, it's so bad that fans, true fight fans, stop watching.
Yeah.
Like there have been fights over the years. Yeah, I remember my dad going all the way back, like old school Sugar Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler era, where my dad was so upset. I was too young to really absorb the fight per se and like what was going on, but I just remember my dad's reaction to a lot of these fights, and he did. He ultimately kind of quit boxing watching this stuff because of judges. And by the way, some of this stuff is corrupt too. Like I'm not going to give boxing a cookie here. Like there is corruption as well. UFC, I think, has rose to the prominence that it has, George, because a lot of that stuff is not in that sport like it is boxing. You don't see quite as much corruption anyway.
I'm trying. Oh man, I'll find it for you. Same night I saw Bud Crawford and Lomachenko fight, theater in Madison Square Garden, 2016. I'm trying to find that fight card for you. Best internship I ever had, HBO Real Sports, which I grew up watching because it's the best sports storytelling of all time. It's a damn shame it went away because they did storytelling unlike anybody else, and they truly did an objective job on the storytelling.
Yeah,
there was no bias behind it.
Right.
First fight I ever interned for, Triple G against David Lemieux.
Wow.
Then the night of the Lomachenko-Bud Crawford fight, I was helping out that night, I believe. Yes.
That's crazy.
There's 2 different nights. And then one of those. So my job, though, I was the guy in the dressing room with the headset on saying, hey, this fight right now, it's in the 5th round. So they know to get ready at the right pace.
On time.
Hey, it's 6th round. And I'm the guy of, he just got knocked out. You guys got to go now because it's in a TV element.
Yeah.
And I'm in one room. I'm so mad I forgot the fighters' names. I'm in one room.
Yeah.
And I'm going, hey, you got knocked out. You got to get ready. Go to the other room to tell him. Then I go back to the room. His gloves are already taped up.
He's ready.
His guy from the opposite fighter comes in and he goes, he needs to undo it because we didn't see him wrap his gloves.
Oh, they got to watch him.
But it was Ukrainian and Spanish only being spoken.
Oh.
And what the hell can I do there?
Nothing.
And I was like, and so all these people can literally murder me with their hands because they're such good punchers. And I'm yelling, you need to undo it. Redo. I'm saying stop, no, just as simple as that. And I'm going, redo it, undo it. Eventually they did.
You see, sports unites us with sanctioned violence. You got to love it. Hit the hotline, 617-790-0928. What are your biggest snubs in sports history? You can also email it to us at chat@nesson.com. All right, drum roll, please. Number 1 on your list, sir.
Pete Rose. Pro Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
One of the greatest players of all time, the greatest hitter of all time, the hit king.
Yep.
4,200 career hits. You don't let him in because he was gambling. He wasn't murdering people. He was gambling.
Facts.
That's it. He always bet on his team, too, because he believed in them. He would literally call his bookie in the middle of games and bet on his team, which is absurd, and I understand that, but he always bet on his team. Pete Rose, no doubt about it. Not being in the Hall of Fame it's not even a snub. It's just like a damn shame. What was the one I found, too? He was gambling like $10,000 a day, but bet on every Reds game, all manager of the team, he bet on them to win.
Rest his soul, Pete Rose.
Yep.
I'm going in the same direction as you, but I'm going to go a different player. I'm going Barry Bonds, not being in the Hall of Fame. Now, on one hand, it's a bigger conversation because a lot of the players during the steroid era are not getting into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
So it's a bigger conversation of you got to include Bonds, McGuire, Clemens, all these people, right? But Bonds specifically, in my opinion, is a unique case. And why I say he's snubbed is because he had a Hall of Fame career before he ever allegedly took steroids, which we know he did.
He did. Oh, yeah.
But before he did that, he had the numbers. He was already a Hall of Famer. With his time with the Pirates and early seasons with the Giants, the guy was a Hall of Famer.
Yep.
Then we saw him grow and look like a superhuman and hit baseballs to the moon. Okay, I get it. But I bring up the era, the steroid era, because how are you going to just vilify a handful of players from that time? Literally, everyone was doing it.
Yep.
Everyone. So you got to keep a whole lot of folks out of the Hall of Fame, which they're not doing, if you notice. They're picking and choosing who gets in, who gets in, who doesn't, playing favorites. I think that's unfair. I think much like you said with Pete Rose, I believe Barry Bonds should be in the Hall of Fame as well.
Yeah, again, we're talking about like 2 of the top greatest hitters of all time.
Ever.
That eye that he had was absurd. And like steroids can't do that. It can make you hit a baseball far. You still got to hit it. And as you said, his time with the Pirates, early with the Giants, I mean, that was a 30-30 guy through and through.
Yes.
5-tool player.
Yes.
Still a Gold Glover. So, yeah.
These are our sports elections. We want to hear from you. Top 3 biggest snubs in sports history, 617-790-0928. Also email us at chat@nesson.com. The NBA season is here. And the big question is, will the Celtics repeat and claim banner 19? You can find everything about the NBA and pop culture on Nesson's basketball podcast, Hold My Banner, available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else podcasts are found. All right, George, speaking of NBA, Joel Embiid, we know, suspended for 3 games. We broke that news on the last Boston has entered the chat. Now, he's suspended for 3 games without pay for shoving a reporter. Do you believe, now that we have time to flush this out, that this is a fair punishment for Joel Embiid?
Yeah, you shouldn't put your hands on anyone. You're in a professional setting. If it was, it's not. I'm not going to compare any job to being a professional athlete. But if that happens in a different workspace, like you're fired.
Facts.
At that point.
Maybe even arrested.
Yeah, exactly. And like Joel, obviously it wasn't that bad where it was an actual assault and he was arrested.
Yeah.
You shove someone, again, not knowing how bad the shovel is, but you're shoving a reporter. He has a job to do. You have a job to do. You're a reflection of the NBA and the 76ers. I think it's right for a 3-game suspension. It also is look, stuff is written, and everyone can judge how bad it is, how much it crosses a line. But if someone can put out all the way straight down the line, look, this player's struggling because look at these numbers, and they can be as objective as possible. He takes it the wrong way, and he thinks he could put his hands on someone as well just because they're doing their job and because Embiid did. That is a part of you got to get this right away and make an example out of it. You don't put your hands on reporters who are there to cover the game and to hold accountable to teams, ownership, coaching, players as well.
I agree with everything you said. I think the suspension is fair.
Yeah.
I still wish there was someone grown up enough, and it feels like it should be Adam Silver to me, but I don't know, jurisdiction-wise, who would reside over what I'm going to say here. But I feel like somebody needs to get involved and nip the next Joel Embiid situation in the bud, meaning this reporter repeatedly had done what got him shoved, meaning he kept bringing up Joel Embiid's family.
Yeah.
And I think Joel Embiid had said something to him in the past, and the guy kept doing it. In my opinion, that's where you gotta get ahead of this stuff. Someone, the 76ers, the paper, somebody, the NBA, someone has to get involved here to get grown-ups in the room and say, hey, leave the family members out of this. Why? It never adds any credence to these stories anyway.
Yeah.
Every time he has used Joel Embiid's family members in these stories, it makes no sense. And it's disjointed. And it's like, well, why are you going there? So Joel Embiid is right, ultimately, to be upset and to call this guy out multiple times, which he did. I just think someone should be presiding over this that has some sort of accountability to be like, hey, I think, honestly, talking this out, it's the 76ers.
Yeah.
It has to be, because it's in-house. Everything's in-house. They know this writer.
Exactly.
They allow him in. They allow him access.
Adam Silver's not going to preside over all 30 teams.
It's the 76ers.
But the 76ers, the second he called him out at the presser, and the second they contact Marcus Hayes, hey, we want to get you and Joel to talk. We're going to do it over the phone. Don't come to the arena for the next week or so. That's what it should have been. Even though he's not playing. Yeah. We don't want you in the room. We don't know how his teammates will react. 76ers should have done more.
And keep the personal stuff out of it. That's the other thing.
That's it. Like, they call him and go, you have to stop that.
You got to stop doing this.
He took it out of the article originally written, but it was written. And that's
I think
also,
he apologized,
and
too.
on the Marcus Hayes side of it, that's on his editor. That the editor is reading through that article, reads that line about his dead brother, and lets it keep going. The editor should have got that. So it is Marcus Hayes' boss and Joel Embiid's boss, essentially, the 76ers.
Right.
The teams or companies they work for, they should have done more here.
Well, the 76ers continue to fail Joel Embiid. That's a bigger topic here, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, think about this, right? So I don't want to use the words allow him, but really, you allow him to go to Olympics and play. Look at what the Clippers did with Kawhi. Like, hey, man, that knee ain't right. Get your butt home. Like, we're not playing these games, and he still wasn't ready for the season. But the 76ers did not take that route with Joel Embiid. He went to the Olympics. He played well.
Yeah.
He got his gold medal. He looked fine to me. And then, George, there's a period after the Olympics, before the season starts, where you can rest and recover and be ready to go. What happened in there? I've been asking that question since.
Yeah.
What the hell happened from the Olympics to the start of the season where this guy isn't ready? Why I'm blaming the Sixers is, did something happen, a tweak, an injury of some sort in that time period, and you're not making it public? That's a problem. But I don't believe that's the case. I believe they're letting this guy do what he wants. And I think Joel Embiid's saying, look, you guys want me healthy for the playoffs. I only need to play X amount of games. I don't need to play to start the season, which I think is ludicrous. So I look at all this as the 76ers are the biggest problem. For all of this. The suspension, Joel Embiid not playing yet, All of it.
Mark is like, I've read some more articles from the guy, the Philly journalist. Like, he does, before he even got to the family stuff, like the stuff he was writing, I'm like, this is someone that's going too far.
It's edgy.
Yeah. But it's beyond edgy where he's truthfully calling him out, but it's to the point of, okay, you're going to call someone out like this consistently in an article that is largely consumed in Philly. You got to get one-on-one and talk with him. Like, he's been crossing the line. And Joel Embiid even said, talk about me, say I suck, say I'm out of shape. That's fine. Don't talk about my family. But it's something building up, and this guy was going way too far for way too long, needed to be checked, but not in this way.
Is there any of this whole drama that you think can galvanize the team? Like, in other words, here's why I ask. I never felt like the team rallies, before all this, George, I never felt like this team rallies around Joel Embiid, the leader.
Yeah.
I think as a player, it's obvious. We can all see the guy dominates. He's fantastic. But as a team, which is why it's one of the reasons I think they keep coming up short in the postseason.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a great leader. I don't think the team says, let's get behind Joel Embiid and have him lead us to the next level. I just don't think that happens. So as I look at this drama that's going on with the team, the suspension, whenever Joel Embiid decides to play, do you believe it will galvanize the team? Because I don't.
No, it'll just be the boost they get from him showing up. It'll probably be more of like, finally, let's go and let it be consistent.
As the player.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't like the leader on him. I mean, and this is
I
a
don't
guy.
think he's a great leader.
He steps on the floor. He's averaging 35 points a night. Like, we all know what he can do. He's an MVP winning player. Like, he's one of the most talented to ever step on the floor. He's one of the greatest players in the league right now. Most talented in the league right now. But like you said, as the leader, for a guy that like before the season starts, like, I'm never going to play in a back-to-back ever again. Same guy that, what will stop the Celtics will be that second apron in the new CBA. Like, no, it should be me. A guy that has shown up, has put it all on the floor. He's played through Bell's palsy, dealing with the flap in his knee. Exactly. Like, he's played through a lot. He's shown up, but it's stuff like this where he comes up short. And to your point of someone to play for, where, hey, Joel, we get it. You wanted that gold medal.
Yeah.
But now you're getting this huge contract again, $193 million. You need an NBA ring. You need to get past the second round. That should be the priority. He's not doing that.
I tell you who loves all this drama in Philadelphia, Celtics fans.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, bro, all these teams from the offseason.
Who are the biggest threats?
Oh, the Knicks are 500 right now. Yeah. The Pacers, I think I could play in the front court for them, and that ain't good. They have no front court depth right now. Everybody's hurt. The Magic, Paolo's out.
Yep.
Now the Cavs are hot, but it is
it's the Cavs.
Cleveland, right?
It's the Cavs.
It's still Cleveland. Let's everyone calm down on that. The Bucks are a mess. I think Giannis is going to ask for a trade any day now. And then you have the 76ers. I mean, the Celtics are like, hey, you know what? Jaylen Brown with that hip, just take your time. No need to rush back. Take your time. Take your rest. I mean, it is a mess. So congratulations, Celtics fans.
That's what it was. All the biggest threats we thought would be coming out of the East, just null and void, man.
Null and void. I'm fine with it. All right, you want the latest on the Patriots and the NFL? Look no further than George and I. Drake May needs help, and we discuss how he can get it quick on Nesson's football podcast, Foxborough Rush. It's available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and wherever else podcasts are found. All right, now if we're talking football, we got to talk Thursday night football.
Excited for this one.
This is a big one. Some of these Thursday night games, I'm not going to lie, bro. I mean, we're always honest. We're always like, well, that's all right. This is a big one. Bengals at the Big Crab Cake. I know you like when I call it that. At the Ravens.
You're the only person that calls it that, right? M&T Bank?
I am.
It's fair.
George asked me one day, he goes, is that really a thing, or do you just say that? I said, I just do it. I just do it.
Yeah.
Bengals at Ravens. Bengals look like they got their shack together. Oh, you're not buying it?
I mean, it's been the Giants, the Deshaun Watson-led Cleveland Browns.
The plot thickens.
And the Las Vegas Raiders, who literally just fired everyone except for Antonio Pierce. So, like, who are they beating? Then they face Philly, and they're like nothing. They're lifeless against them. They were a get-right game for Philly. Last two times we saw this matchup, we saw 79 points. 9 touchdowns between Lamar and Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
We saw almost 1,000 yards in a single game. And we saw an overtime game-winning field goal by Justin Tucker. It was a 41-38 final in OT, where Lamar almost blew the game by messing up the shotgun fumble, but it was recovered. We saw Lamar make unbelievable plays, so it's entertaining. But that was 4 games ago. And what I'm seeing from Baltimore week by week, game by game, compared to Cincy, I just have the belief in Baltimore. There's gonna be a 38 in this game. It's gonna be from the Ravens.
Oh,
I don't think Cincy breaks 24 on this one.
oh,
The Ravens just beat the Broncos 41-10. That Broncos defense is top 3 in the league.
yeah.
And I've said it. In
At
seven
home,
straight,
by the way.
in 7 straight scoring drives,
Yeah.
they did 441 yards and 41 points on a team that was allowing 280 yards and 16 points a game. What are they going to do against the Bengals, who are one of the softest defenses in the league?
Yeah.
So
Derrick Henry is what's going to happen. That's what's
he
going to happen.
didn't even run all over Cincy last time.
Not
but
last time.
But I think he had like 92 carries, 92 yards on like 13, 15 carries.
So he was
The
effective.
volume wasn't even there.
Right.
Yeah.
He was effective, but the volume wasn't there.
Baltimore's pick your poison.
Yes.
Bad secondary. Diontae Johnson gets his footing. Zay Flowers been good. Lamar eats.
I like the Johnson addition, by the way.
Me too.
I don't think he's some great wide receiver, but I think on that team in particular, with that core, they need guys that can play. And I think he's okay. And I think we'll find out how good he is now, because he's in a place where we can actually see it.
Every team is like, do we want to put up with the headache of Diontae Johnson? Do we
Right.
want to put up? There is John Harbaugh. There is Mike Tomlin.
Lamar.
There is Jim Harbaugh.
Yep.
There are coaches around the league that can make that headache go away and make them lock in and play.
Quarterbacks, too.
And he's one of them. And quarterbacks, Lamar's one of them.
I'll give Lamar credit. I don't think Lamar gets enough credit. We were just talking about this with Joel Embiid, right? I think Lamar's a great leader. And I don't know if he gets enough credit for that. All right, with all that being said, I got this game wrong. I gambled on the Bengals the last time these two played. And my whole reasoning was because the game was in the jungle, because it was in Cincy. And I said back then, when I didn't hit the bet, when this swings back around to Baltimore, I'll be betting on the Ravens. And here I am. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm not going to lay all these points in this game. I do think I am buying the Bengals being hot lately. I do believe. I hear you with the schedule. I can't argue that. But you can only play who's in front of you. And by the way, the season was over for the Bengals. They were finished. Stick a fork in them. They're done. And all they've done now, despite the record, you play who's on your schedule.
Yeah.
But what they've done is they've scratched and they've clawed their way back into the AFC wildcard picture. I still don't think they're going to make it.
Yeah.
But I have to give them credit for even being here. So, with that being said, I'm willing to give you a score. I'm going to go 34-30 Ravens. Bengals cover. Great game. Lamar down the stretch is a difference. Derrick Henry has a great game. I just think he's going to run all over these guys. I think Derrick Henry carries the game and Lamar makes the plays down the stretch that wins it for Baltimore. But I think you're sleeping a bit on the momentum that the Bengals have. Can't argue the schedule. I won't do that because you're right. But the momentum is there. The team is believing that they can make a playoff push. This is as big of a test as you're going to find. They've already climbed out of a hole to a certain extent, and now you're on the road against the creme de la creme and the Ravens. They got to have it. I think they come up short, but I think it's a closer game than you. I'll go 34-30. And look, I will bet on any Derrick Henry rushing prop I can get my hands on.
Anytime touchdowns, like almost minus 300.
Okay, except that one.
Exactly.
Except that. What's two touchdowns?
I know. Exactly. I think 2 touchdowns, it's a nice number.
All right, I'll go 2 touchdowns.
No, I hear you. But Vegas and the spread speaks to me more about Cincy than Baltimore. You go back, their last meeting, it was a 2.5 point spread.
Yeah.
Bengals were the dogs. It's 6.5 now.
Yeah, it is.
Because
of Baltimore.
Huge difference.
I think it's
also
a home field.
because of Cincinnati. Yeah, the home field.
So you're saying Vegas feels the way you do, that it's fool's. Yeah. It's a schedule. It's fool's gold.
Yeah, exactly. That's 2 scores is a lot. But even think, and you talk about the momentum, the same thing. What does that shootout win against the Commanders do for Baltimore?
Sure.
7-win Commanders team.
Sure.
What does them absolutely dominating Denver after, and I know they lost to the Browns, Kyle Hamilton picks a ball off. They've won 7 straight.
Yeah.
That's what we've been talking about with this Baltimore team. 7 straight wins. They know this. The awareness is there. They've beaten Tampa, who's a banged up defense too and a struggling team as well. So I'm not going to paint them up. they've run Buffalo off the field. Like,
Yeah.
This Baltimore team has been a top 3 team in the league week in, week out for so many weeks. And this Baltimore team, this Bengals team is just,
Okay, listen to this. 1, 2, 3. They have 4 games before the bye week. The Ravens do. Listen to this hellacious schedule. So you get the Bengals at home.
At home.
You go to Pittsburgh.
That's a tough one.
You go to the Chargers. That's a Monday nighter.
Ooh.
And then you're home against the Eagles. Your next 4 games. I mean, look, we say, okay, this is a big test to see if the Bengals are fugazi or not.
Yeah.
But the fact is, we're also going to learn a lot about the Ravens over the next 4 games, too.
If anything, the best thing is that this is on a short week, so they're not looking ahead to that Steelers matchup. Because now it is a divisional matchup, so they're going to take the Bengals serious no matter what. Yeah, you can't look ahead
anyway.
And it is Joe Burrow, but it's on a short week. That
Right.
keeps him even more locked in on the Cincinnati team.
Yeah, you can't look ahead in these divisional games.
And
for
even
sure.
the Broncos game, they're blowing them out. Like, they pulled the starters at the end. This
Smart.
Rested team.
That's smart. Boy, that is a hellacious schedule, though.
That is tough.
I think they beat the
Steelers,
Bengals.
Chargers.
They could lose that Steeler game. The way the Steelers are playing right now, they could lose that game.
In Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
Especially the upgrades Pittsburgh just made to their defense.
I don't think the Chargers have enough offensively, and I can't trust the Eagles. I mean, if you go 2-2 or 3-1 in that stretch, you're a bona fide Super Bowl team, which is what the Ravens are.
The catch is that this Baltimore defense is pretty much down the middle.
Yeah.
And again, a game that finished at 79, massive total for a short week Thursday night, 52.5.
Wow.
And both of us have the over, though.
Yeah.
I'm going 38-20. You're going 34-30.
34-30.
So we see high 50s into the 60s for this. And even it could be Baltimore doing the heavy lifting. I see mid to high 50s as well. If someone is stuck of, I think Baltimore, I like them at home, but the defense, you go over in this one, I wouldn't hate it.
I'll tell you one thing. You can never go wrong betting on Baltimore at home. It's really that simple. By the way, I brought up the Bengals chasing for the wild card. I'm looking right now at the current playoff standings. George, they're right there. The Chargers right now, if the playoffs were to start today, would have that final wild card spot. They're 5-3. Bengals are 4-5, right behind them.
Yeah.
They're in the cluster there with the Denver Broncos, the Colts, who no one believes in, and then the Bengals, and then the Jets.
The reflection on the AFC North is that Baltimore is the third best team in the league, but they're not first in their division. Pittsburgh is. Pittsburgh has that actual playoff spot.
Do you think the Ravens are the best team in that division, though?
Yeah.
Me too.
I do.
And by the way, this is coming from a guy who just told you I think the Steelers will probably beat the Ravens next week. They are legit. But I still think the Ravens are the better team.
Lamar with Derrick Henry, the addition of Diontae Johnson.
Jeez.
We'll see what they do personnel-wise. I mean, Diontae only played like 7-8 snaps for the Ravens when they won by 31. And that game, too, again, going up against one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
Baltimore was favored by 9.
Jeez.
Only 6.5. Less than a touchdown.
You're laying the points.
Against a really soft defense.
I'll take the Bengals to cover. I'll take the Ravens to win. You're laying the points. GB for the record, 38-20.
Yeah.
38-20 Ravens, 34-30 Ravens here. We both have the Ravens, and we both think Derrick Henry goes off. But, hey, remember, you can enter the chat, too. Whether you have a question about your favorite team, you need life advice, or even if you have something you just need to get off your chest, say it with your chest. We're here for you. Call the Nesson Vodcast hotline, 617-790-0928. You can also email us, thechat@nesson.com. We want to hear from you. All right, let's get our fight songs fired up. The first ever college football playoff rankings.
I love it.
Top 12.
I can't wait.
12 teams in the playoff. No more of that 4-team or that BCS BS. We got 12. Here they go right here. Your reactions.
But what gets me is the home playoff games, not neutral site, at a college stadium. So 1 through 12, I'm going 1 through 12 here. Oregon, Ohio State, Georgia, Miami,
Yep.
Texas,
Yep.
Penn State, Tennessee, Indiana,
Yes, Lord.
BYU, shout out Mormons, Notre Dame,
Why you always
Alabama,
do that?
Boise State, shout out the Mormons. But keep in mind, the top 4 seeds must be conference champions.
Right.
So the teams that get the buys are Oregon, Georgia, Miami, and BYU, because BYU would be a Big 12 champion. So Ohio State is 2 right now, but they don't get a bye because you have to be a conference champion.
You got to win it.
So you'd have Ohio State, hosting Ashton Jeanty in Boise State. Sick. Texas hosting Alabama. Sick. Penn State hosting Notre Dame. Love it. James Franklin versus Marcus Freeman's a good coaching matchup. And it would be James Franklin. Can you effing beat a good team?
Yeah, can you win a big game ever?
Tennessee hosting Indiana. Indiana on a huge upswing season.
Yeah.
I really would love a Notre Dame at Tennessee.
I think that one
gets it going more.
Stuff can change.
Yeah.
We still could get it.
And even think Alabama's on the cusp at 11, but a 2-loss team, one more loss and they're done.
Yeah.
Them facing LSU, that's deciding. That's a playoff team.
Pretty much.
Playoff game for
both.
both.
The winner gets in, right.
I can't disagree too much with this top 12. And we know who the clear cuts are.
Yeah.
And just having that layout. Trav, what I'm most excited for, I'll say it time and time again, home playoff games in college football. That is chef's kiss.
It is a chef's kiss. And by the way, I'm going to give you a victory lap here because I told you coming into this, we did what we kind of predicted what we thought would happen. And a couple of my takeaways were I thought in this format that Miami and Indiana would get a lot more love. And I actually thought there was a world in where they were getting more love than the Georgias, more love than the Ohio States of the world. And you told me not so fast. You said, no, I think strength of schedule is going to hurt them both.
Yeah.
And I still believe that Ohio State and Georgia will get more love than those teams. And you were absolutely right. So that was my first takeaway. When I first saw this come out, I said, I'll be damned. George was right. Because I thought in this new format, I didn't think it would be as much credence put on strength of schedule as it has been in the past and some of these head-to-head matchups and these other things that we look at. But because there's so many teams involved. But they got it right. There's no argument from me.
Yeah.
Even though I was wrong that those teams didn't get as highly ranked as I thought they would, I still feel as though they got it right. Miami's pretty high up there at 4, obviously. So Indiana, by the way, Indiana and Ohio State still play in a couple weeks. So that's going to kind of sort itself out too.
Huge.
I think Ohio State does end up winning the Big Ten. No problem there.
You think Ohio State is the betting favorite.
Yeah, I do.
Plus 325. Georgia
to win the whole thing.
Yes.
Okay.
Georgia, Oregon are 4-1.
Yeah, it's hard. Think about this. Okay, so Oregon barely beat
Ohio
them.
State. I have a ticket on Ohio State.
Oh, you do. So you're in good shape. Oregon barely beat them in Eugene.
Yep.
So you're at home.
Yep.
And I mean, if those two played again, I'm sorry, you're not. I would bet on Ohio State to get the job done. That's a tough team to beat twice.
And that came down to the wire and some great coaching by Lanning.
Yeah.
How tough this Ohio State team is. They're also banged up right now with their offensive line.
Yep.
If they get healthy at the right time and get that, I think that'd be huge. I'm pulling up my ticket right now. So I have Ohio State plus 380, so I'm better by 50 cents.
Yep.
And then I did put 2 separate tickets, but it says who I think. I have Oregon 7-1 as well on a future that put before the season. Yeah.
Wow. So you're covered.
I'm in a good spot. Yeah, I'm not going to touch anything else.
You need one of those two to win it, and both of them could. What teams make you nervous for both of those tickets? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not buying Georgia. I don't like the Beck kid. I think Texas. I love the roster of Texas. Quinn Ewers is killing me. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about him anymore. I thought coming into this season he was going to shut everyone up about Arch Manning, but he's been getting hurt. He's inconsistent. I don't know about him. Gosh, I don't think any of these teams.
Miami. You have an NFL quarterback.
You got the quarterback.
And you have a really good defense. They've played a soft schedule. They haven't
they haven't
anyone.
been tested.
Okay. But they have Cam Ward, who is a dude. And this in college, if you have a quarterback.
It's like Vince Young vibes.
Yes.
Right?
If you have the guy at quarterback, you can win any single game.
Hey, we saw it with Penix.
Yeah.
Remember? I mean, everyone said, well, he's good, but Washington's not. Wrong. Because you had that, as you said, because you had that game changer at that position.
Yes.
They had a legitimate shot to win the Natty. They didn't get it done, but they had a shot.
And the difference to me between Miami and Alabama, because you go, well, Jalen Milroe has Kalen DeBoer.
Sure.
Jalen Milroe has those mind-numbing plays 3-4 times a game where you go, what is he doing? He's not an NFL quarterback. I do not think Jalen Milroe is an NFL quarterback at all. He's a great college football quarterback. He's a playmaker. He's athletic. He's super dynamic. But as a passer, he's not an NFL quarterback. Cam Ward is that guy.
Yeah, he is. That's a good point.
Texas, it's Quinn Ewers. I don't know how healthy he's going to be, but that's an elite defense. Penn State
They
coaching.
can't win.
Georgia can't run the ball. Carson Beck turns it over. Tennessee with Nico Iamaleava. I think he's a year away. And then Notre Dame.
They're limited offensively.
Yeah.
By the way, if this is Nick Saban coaching Bama and they're this low, I would say sleeper city.
Yes.
But I'm not buying it. I think they're done. They'll get in, but if they win a game, cool. But I don't see them winning this whole thing or even going on a deep run. I think it's over. All right, I like your Miami pick, actually. What's a ticket on that situation? Hold on. Hey, hold on. We can't end the show until we get some gambling. It's very important here that we look at a Miami ticket because I may be the one that ruins both of your tickets' lives because you talked me into Miami. I have to think, all right, when you have it, tell me, but don't tell me what it is. I want to guess it.
I have it.
All right, I'm going to say plus. I'm going to say they're 6-1.
More. Longer shot.
Really?
Longer shot.
What is it?
So 12-1.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to end the show right here. Hey, for Travis Thomas, George Malecki here inside the
You need to grab
PNC
your
Bank
phone and
studio.
place a bet.
Yeah. That's going to be it for us here on Boston is Internet the Chat. I'm going to go place that bet
I tell
right
you
now.
what, like I feel better about Miami 12-1 than Texas at 5-1.
Me
Texas
too.
has the defense.
Yes.
But Arch Manning in that big of a stage. If Quinn Ewers was healthy, then Texas would be the biggest threat because he's played in big games.
Yes.
He has executed, but he always gets banged up. And he just didn't look comfortable in their loss to Georgia, where that defensive front completely dominated the game. So Georgia's plus 425, but why I wouldn't bet on them? Beck turns the ball over way too much.
I don't believe in him.
Ewers makes too many mistakes.
I don't believe in him.
Cam Ward, again, he can play spoiler and he can ruin anybody's day.
12-1, bro.
And it is a Mario Cristobal team. That is a tough team with a good defense.
Jeez.
If they played somebody, that would be 650, like you said.
They'll probably
6-1.
have to play Clemson. I think they still play Pitt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some games there where you could see Miami get tested and then have a feel. But I tell you one damn thing, 12-1, it's not going to get a better price than that.
12-1 with a bye, too. That could be a big buy in college
I'm going
football.
to get that ticket right now. For Travis Thomas, George Malecki, here inside the PNC Bank studio. This has been Boston Has Entered the Chat. We'll see you next time. Peace.
Later.